Hi, welcome to How to Repair. In this video we're going to be showing you how to change Siemens IQ700 washing machine bearings. A customer of ours had a problem with his machine and he was kind enough to make a video for us, and it was very good quality, so I thought I'd share it with you.
Hi there. In this video we're going to look at how to replace the bearings in a Siemens IQ700 washing machine. In this case, the seal in the back of the washing machine, which protects the bearings, stops them from getting sort of corroded in any way, that has allowed moisture, that has degraded and allowed moisture to come in, and that's typically what happens, especially in these type of machines. Moisture gets into the area where the bearings are. That then corrodes the races, they become rusty, and that's where you get your grinding noise that you're probably experiencing during your main cycle, and especially during the spin, which is when the bearings are under their highest stress. So let's get right into it and get these bearings replaced.
Right, the first thing Jonathan's doing is removing the top and the back of the machine. This will give you access to all the electrics and also allow you to remove parts off the machine to lighten the drum before removing it. To remove the belt, just pull it towards you while rotating the drum and the belt will come off easily. Now remove the soap drawer by pressing the button down. There's also a video on the website to show you how to clean soap drawers and maintain all the spray holes at the top. Removing the outer band on the front seal. You'll notice he used a little bit of fairy liquid so the screwdriver didn't catch. And then peel the seal inwards. Now he needs to go round and remove any hoses that are attached to the chassis of the machine. And now he's going to remove the front facial panel. Now there's a hidden piece on these IQ next to the panel which he found there, next to the soap drawer, and there's a couple of screws hidden behind it. Once these screws are removed, you can actually take the facial panel off and unplug the program. Remember always to take photographs of any electrics that you remove. It's always useful for when you're reassembling. There's a few screws at the bottom and the top, and you'll need to disconnect the door interlock. Now on these machines they have the push button tabs on the door lock. On other machines you do have screws that hold it in place, but once this is all removed the panel can come away. And he's removing the door seal here. It's not always necessary, but it's useful to get it out of the way. Now he's going to remove the electrics and fold everything back. Now this is where it will make your life a lot easier. By removing all the concrete blocks, or most of them, it will lighten the drum so you can actually get the drum out. Taking the two hoses off the soap drawer, always good to mark up which ones come from where. And now the soap drawer hose can peel off and you'll be able to remove the soap drawer now. By removing all the electrics you're able to make a lot more space, so just unplug everything from the front and fold it backwards. Now he's removing the pressure switch and pressure pipe off the drum. always worth cleaning this chamber out, as this is what controls the amount of water that's going into the machine. If this clogs up, it will take in false amounts of water, meaning it will actually have more water than is needed in the machine, or less water if it blocks. Removing the electrics from the motor, and he's also removing the motor, which is a good idea because it will lighten everything when you come to lift it out of the machine. Also, it's well worth inspecting the carbon brushes at this point. Now you'll notice to remove the heater, there is a detailed video on this on the website, but you need to undo the nut in the middle, but do not take it off, and then just tap the nut in, and that will release the pressure off the seal. Now he's removing the shock absorbers. This is what attaches the drum to the bottom of the machine. And by doing it at this point, he's holding it on the springs at the top. So when he comes to lift it out, he only has to remove them. Jonathan's actually removing the pump here. You do not necessarily need to, but it's not a bad idea because it will allow you to sort of clean out any of the pipes and remove any debris that may be in there. Also, the front shock absorbers need to be undone, and you can see the drum now hanging on the springs, and it's ready to lower and remove. Now, by removing all the nuts that hold the two halves of the drum together, the drum will split off. On early models of Bosch, Neff and Siemens, you will have to cut the tabs. You can see this in one of my other videos, which I done a few years ago. And once this is removed, we're able to take the pulley wheel off the back. Lifting the outer drum off the inner drum, and you'll notice Jonathan has put some wood down to support the drum while knocking the bearings out. This will stop any damage occurring to the actual plastic drum. These bearings can be difficult to come out, and sometimes they do split, so you'll need to actually get the inner and outer race out. Now, as he was actually saying, the inner seal actually deteriorates over a period of time due to fibres like hairs and stuff like that, and just wear and tear, and this causes the seal to not work efficiently and allow water to get into the bearings. Just lining the back bearing up and tapping it down evenly. Now when it comes to the front bearing, you can actually tap them in, but it's not a good idea. It's always a good idea to use a pulling system, which he's going to show you how to make here. This is basically a threaded bar with a couple of nuts and a couple of washers to the same size as the bearings, and then you can actually do the nuts up on either side and pull the bearings in. It's quite an easy thing to make, or you can just go and borrow a set of bearing pullers which will pull the bearing in, but this system works very well. I built this a few years ago to Hot Points and other makes of machines, and it pulls the bearings in. The only thing you need to be careful of is making sure that you align the bearings correctly when doing the nuts up, so it pulls the bearings in correctly. He's done a very good job of cleaning the machine up before reassembling. You can always use a little bit of bearing Loctite on the bearings to the shaft. He's actually got the bearings completely in, and now we need to assemble the two halves of the drum. Now Jonathan's using some silicone here. What I do recommend you use is a glue that we have on the website, which is called D-Bore. I will put a link above and below in the description for this. It's a very good glue which will hold the two halves of the drum together to stop any leaks, because there's nothing worse than doing this job and then finding that you've got a leak. There's the other half of the drum going on. Now when doing these nuts up, you want to do it like a clock, which means if you do the 2 o'clock one, you need to go to the 8 o'clock one, and the 10 o'clock one to the 4 o'clock one, and work around the drum so you align the drum nice and evenly and put the torque on the actual bolts evenly. And now Jonathan will just quickly reassemble the whole machine, making sure to connect all the pipes. And as I said earlier, do make sure when you're doing this job that you do take photographs of the electrics and anything that you think might be slightly confusing when reassembling. And also it's a good idea to always make a note of where some of the screws come from, because some of the screws are to go into steel and other screws are designed to go into plastic, like on the pump. There's special screws that go into the plastic, a different type of thread. When assembling the machine, if you're doing any screws that are going into plastic, make sure you only do them hand tight and then quarter of a turn. Otherwise you may strip the plastic. On the steel it is not that important, but on the screws that go into plastic it is very important. And as I said earlier, do inspect the motor. You can check that if they need any new carbon brushes. It's well worth doing. If you're going to the effort of a complete strip down and rebuild, it is worth changing the carbon brushes. All these parts are available on the website. And as I said, with the pressure pipe system, it's worth putting it in the sink, cleaning it out, blowing through the pipe, making sure that the pressure bowl is working correctly so you get the correct fill level on the machine. It is well worth putting some fairy liquid on the actual lip of the seal when sliding the heating element in. It will make life a little bit easier. And as Jonathan has done, he took some photographs by the look of it of the electrics so he could make sure that they were all going back on to the correct place. And as I said, make sure you take your time, make sure you cable tie all the cables back onto the correct place on the machine. So if you took a cable tie off, make sure you put them back on, because they're designed basically to keep the electrics in a safe place where things like the belt and movement of the machine will not chaff any of the wires. Now, I don't want to repeat myself, but when putting things like the concrete block on and everything else, as I said earlier, these are going into plastic. Do not over tighten. Take them halfway and then give it a little bit of a nip. No more than quarter of the turn once they're hand tight. You can always tighten them if you end up with any vibration noise later, but do not over tighten. So he's just putting the soap drawer hose on and making sure it lines up correctly. Now he's fitting the soap drawer pipes from the two sides. One is for the rinse valve and the other is the wash valve. Make sure you get them on the right way, otherwise the water will be going into the wrong compartment. Now we're putting the pressure switch back on, and as I said, do make sure you put everything back on correctly and it all lines up the way it came off. And any pipes or any tubes that are going to the drum, it's always worth making sure you give them a clean. Now when fitting the door seal, John's doing this perfectly. He's put some fairy liquid just on the edge of the seal. This will make sure it goes on correctly, and also lining up the drain holes on the bottom. There is a more detailed video on fitting door seals at the website, but as you can see, this one has a pipe that goes to the soap drawer, and you can't really put this one on incorrectly. Got the outer band on, reassembling the front of the machine. And now you can put the pipe from the door seal onto the soap drawer, and that's ready to go. Connecting up all the electrics on the top. As I said, always revert back to your photographs. At this point you can actually get the whole panel on, then insert the door lock and it will just clip into place. Now around the front panel there are a lot of different screws, so do make sure you put the right ones in the right place. Looks like Jonathan was just making sure that the pipe was all lined up onto the drawer. Sometimes they can be a bit fidgety to get back on. You have to make sure all the clips go in the correct place, and as I said, make sure you get the right screws, because these screws that he's doing here are plastic screws. Although they're metal, they've got a thread on them which bites into the plastic. Getting the kick strip on, and then the hose that goes to the back. Putting the belt on, making sure everything's all lined up, and as I said, the cable ties, perfect job, Jonathan. He's taken the door off to put the seal on. Might make life easier, but I always do them without. It's not that difficult, but when it's your first attempt it can be quite a tricky little job. And there you go, cracking job. Thanks very much indeed for watching this video. I hope Jonathan helped you. Please take a look at his website. And there you go, you've got Siemens IQ700 all working perfectly and washing again without the noise.
It certainly sounds a bit quieter, doesn't it?
Thanks very much indeed for watching the video. Do remember we have hundreds of tutorials at the website to help you fix your appliances, from cookers, fridges, washing machines to tumble dryers. Thanks very much indeed for watching, and do remember to shop with us.